Ohayou gozaimasu, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I'm really excited to take a moment today to tell you a little bit about what we're doing at Totemo. As along with, we do, occasionally we do startup events, pitch events, things like that. But this time we wanted to make it a little bit more interesting. So my colleague Elena, who is the brains of the company, will take more time later to explain in depth more about what is street art and how it relates to the modern art scene in terms and preservation. So I'm actually always looking forward to listening to that too. Um, so I'll get started a little bit. And also, I should mention that later on in our presentation as well, Jodee Knowles, who is an artist who works with my company Totemo, or with our company Totemo, will be joining us from Australia and explaining to you the creative process, which is very interesting. She's a very, very cool artist. Well, maybe before I jump into Totemo itself, I'll just quickly introduce myself. So, again, my name's Marty. I've been in Japan I don't know, since 2007. My background was in pharmaceuticals, so that's why I mentioned that Elena, who has the actual academic background in art, is the brains of the company. After working in pharmaceuticals for a long time, I had built a medical startup in Japan and sold that to a pharmaceutical distributor here in Japan. So that was my first startup. And then it was during the pandemic when my children were doing distance learning, and at the time my son was only 6, my daughter was older, 9. She was able to, do distance learning easy, but a 6-year-old boy in front of an iPad all day, a nightmare, right? So I decided it was very tough for my wife to, of course, be helping our son out all day. So I said, let me take some subjects. So for music, I tried to teach kids some instruments. I taught them the history of punk rock. Gym, for PE, I decided to buy them skateboards and teach them to skate. And then as we're out skateboarding, listening to punk rock, as you do, I started explaining graffiti to them around the city. And the difference between a piece and a bomb and all of these different things, which if you grow up, at least the way I grew up in the US, skateboarding, listening to this like punk rock, hip hop, if you're in that scene, street art and graffiti was just part of it. And so it got me thinking, it kind of turned on my entrepreneur brain that says, here's a group of artists producing really cool work that can't be monetized. So this sort of entrepreneur side of me said, hey, wait, this could be a really cool market. We just need to find a way to monetize these people's works. That way we can support the artists and they can make a living off of doing really cool stuff, which, you know, it's a really interesting group because not only do they not make money, they risk jail time for what they do, right? So that's kind of the personal background, but like why street art? Street art is, if you look at most of the major or many of the major players in today's art world, they were street artists. First and foremost, Banksy, Basquiat, Keith Haring, Cause, all of these people who you see in fabulous places like Mori Art Museum, all started by scribbling stuff on walls, right? And the issue with street art and graffiti is that it's ephemeral. It will not last forever. And perhaps Elena will explain it later. Some of the artists actually prefer that aspect of the art. But I mean, it's ephemeral in that it will get painted over. It will, the governments will wash the walls, right? So it's because of that, it's not collectible, and so it can't be monetized. But we thought that with the emergence of Web3 and basically the blockchain itself presents a great way to actually provide permanence to these artworks and make them collectible and tradable. So that's what we did. Our solution to the problem is we built an online gallery platform that allows street art creators, creatives, people who support the culture, collectors, to be able to buy and sell and trade in the form of NFTs. So I won't go into it too much, but basically NFTs it's sort of a crypto solution that provides a permanent receipt, a permanent record of when a digital object was created, who purchased it, for what price, and how it traded hands. And the reason why NFTs are so good for the art world, although I do think NFTs will revolutionize the world much larger than art, but it's really taken its first foothold in the art world because NFTs provide proof of authenticity, that this digital work is authentic and it's from the person who says made it, they did. It provides scarcity. You can limit the number of official copies out there. And it provides provenance. You can see when something was bought. And anyone who has experience in art collecting will realize authenticity, scarcity, and provenance are probably some of the most important criteria about collecting art, except for the fact of whether or not you like the piece. That's number one. So by doing this, we've made street art permanent, collectible, and monetizable. Our platform itself is still in sort of a soft launch, kind of secret beta stage. But it's sort of invitation only. But anyone here who would like to get in, I'll give you the secret link, the invitation to come in and take a look. And we've started with 9 artists, but this is being increased almost every day. In fact, we're above 9 now. But they represent artists from all over the world. So from Japan here, we have Baki Baki and Kua. Jodee, who will join us from Australia. Chris is from New York. Shiro is New York. Tona is from Hamburg. Night Owl is LA. La Mano Fria is also Tokyo. Falco from South Africa. So we've been working with artists all over the world because since we're talking about a digital first sort of company, there's really no border restrictions. So let me explain again a little bit what an NFT would look like for street art. So this image here you see is a real piece. It's real spray paint on a real wall in South Africa made by the artist Falco Fantastic. On top of it, you can even, like on the bottom right, you can see the spray paint cans. You can also see on the top, he put the spray paint cans in the window to make it look like the flower, which is very cool. And then using some digital magic, we can make that piece of art come alive. Right? So this is what we're doing. Now, not every artist animates the work. Some of them are not. But for the most part, we find that people are being attracted to the animated sort of works like that. The platform itself, I can show you. So when you go in, you can see artworks from all over the world. That and eventually it becomes more recommended for you as you play around with it. We also have the top artists selling on the platform, and beyond that, we also do some in real life events or IRL events, and that's because we want to spend a lot of time educating the public about this niche area of art that up until now really hasn't been collected. Elena will take you through some more of that sort of work and the educational work that she's doing from a curator's perspective. Inside the marketplace, you can go through, you can see everything is right now, it's priced in Ethereum, which is a type of cryptocurrency, but we're going to be adding quite soon other payment methods, just credit cards, etc. And along with only NFTs, we'll also be adding some merchandise options where if you find a piece of art that you really like, but the NFT is a bit expensive, you could buy yourself, a hooded sweatshirt or a t-shirt or an art print for your wall. I'll skip through the rest of that. So I'll just mention the core members of our team. There's 4 of us who co-founded TOTEMO together. So myself, I've explained my background. Ali, who was the chief technical officer at the medical startup that I did. He's also on the TOTEMO team, helping develop all of this cool technology we're doing. He really likes it because the tech we're using is pretty cutting edge in terms of being blockchain and Web3. Elena, who will present more about herself in just a moment, so I'll let Elena present more. And our other member, Minami, who unfortunately, she spends half her time in Germany, half in Tokyo, and she just left for Germany 2 days ago, so unfortunately she couldn't join us today. So with that, why don't I turn it over to Elena, and you could maybe give a bit of your background, and I can control the slides. You could use either one.
Okay. So my name is Elena Calderon, and I am the head curator from TOTEMO. And my background, a bit about my background, I study conservation and restoration of cultural heritage in Spain. And then I did a master about exhibition of contemporary art, also in Spain. And well, I basically study like more like traditional art to restore this kind of like paintings, or to work in church, like wall paintings and sculptures. And I did some practice in museums, art galleries. So I know like the world of museums. And then during my degree, you can make the next one. During my degree, I did like exchange program in Athens, in Greece, and one of our professors, she took us into in the streets, and she teaches about materials to use to restore wall paintings, the traditional ones, but we took it to restore like graffiti and street art. And here in this image, you can see how we were like working, restoring a paste up in the streets of Athens. So we documented the techniques and the materials that the street artists were using, and we knew about like the artists and how they feel about conserve and restore this kind of pieces and works. From then, I started to be like more focused on the only like graffiti and street art, and I took it from the digital, like next one, and I was part of this community called a street art community, where you can like document these kind of works, and I documented from different cities where I lived in Europe, like Bilbao, Stockholm, Reykjavik, and Slovenia, and now I'm documented from Tokyo. And we collect the locations of each of the murals, and we also talk about the materials and techniques that the artists use. And then it's when I met Marty, we had the idea about taking this kind of art into NFTs or into the blockchain. And here's like a small video how it looks like online gallery or virtual gallery. And like we saw that like Sotheby's and Christie's, they were even doing like this kind of online galleries, and they were taking this kind of street art into the metaverse, like with platforms like Decentraland and Spatial. And it's quite interesting because you can create like your own avatar, you can go inside this space, you can see the works. They also have like QR codes that you can scan, you can see the biography about the artist. They link you to their like web page, and you can purchase these works. So it's really like, I don't know, like new and interesting world to interact. And also it's really interesting because it's make you part of the community, and you can chat with other people like interested in it, and you have like the space like Twitter spaces or Discords, and you can know more about like different collectors that they have also like interested in this kind of art. And about Totemo, what we do from one step to another, it's like selecting and onboarding artists first, and we create their profile with their biography and the links to their socials. We also select the artworks, and we mint it for them also on the platform, and we prepare the drops for the marketing gradually, like week by week. Then we also organize shows and events in real life, where we did live auction and live painting too. So the people can like interact with the artist in person, and they can purchase these artworks, and also they can see how the NFTs can be displayed in real life. And also we do like education for the public in general, like customers and collectors. And yeah, you can do the next one. This is an example, this video, of one of the events that we did last year. You can, okay. So this one we did it in one art gallery in Harajuku. Our events are like in different art galleries around town. And in this one we display like from several of our artists in the screens. And we also have like live auction and live painting from two artists from Osaka, Baki Baki and Kua. And our most recent project was this Harajuku wall gallery that you can see there, where like 7 different artists, they participate in from painting one wall in next to Kate Street in the center of Harajuku. And we had international artists, but also like Japanese artists. And these walls, we will animate them and create NFTs from these real works. This is one of the examples of the animations that we did from Kua, like one artist from Osaka. And well, I leave you like some links from the some articles that I published. And I also do sometimes like conference from street art and graffiti. For example, last year I did twice, one in Lisbon and one in Ljubljana in Slovenia. And yeah, I was talking about graffiti and NFT, like bringing this kind of art into the blockchain. And you can see it there in Timeless Graffiti. And also I did like I wrote about street art in Tokyo, in Sabukaru online magazine, that I recommend you to read it if you are interested in exactly graffiti in Tokyo, because it's really underground and really different from graffiti in other parts of the world. And the last part, like the educational programs, we have this series of episodes from podcast episodes, and the host is Stephanie from Australia, and she's also really enthusiastic about graffiti and street art. And every week we do drops from this podcast, and she chats with all the artists about they're interested in the NFT world and how to take their graffiti works to the NFTs and the marketplace, and how they animate it, and how they see the advantages and disadvantages about selling their products as NFTs.
Yeah, so we wanted to introduce Jodee Knowles. Jodee is one of our initial artists. Jodee's coming to us from Australia. I'm a big fan of Jodee's work. I have a lot in my house. Thank you, Jodee. So I'll turn it over to you, Jodee. You could do a better introduction for yourself than I could.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for having me, guys. So my name is Jodee Knowles. I'm an artist originally from Perth, Australia, now residing in the Blue Mountains. I've been a practicing artist for about 12 to 15 years now. And always based on physical work, so visual art. For me, entering the NFT world has been quite interesting because I'm very, not digital savvy in any way. So getting the chance to have my works turn from, a 2D kind of work to a animated physical, a digital platform has been really exciting. So today I'm just going to kind of run through and chat a little bit about how I came on board with TOTEMO and some of my processes from sketch to mural work on the streets, graffiti, and to creating an NFT. So if we hit the next slide. So these are some of the NFTs that I got to do and work with through TOTEMO. Was lucky enough to come over to Japan and meet all of the lovely people from there, collaborating and launching me onto the NFT platform. For me, again, physical work's always been my thing. So I had a chat with Marty, and he was kind enough to allow me to have a physical exhibition at Gallery Ether, and then create these NFTs. So most of these were images taken from some of the actual artworks, and then working with a company called the Mushroom Gallery to create these animations, which I'll chat a little bit more soon. But I wanted to run through the Buddha mural. So we hit the next slide. The Buddha mural is a piece that I did here in my local community. The client had a very interesting concept with lots going on. Some of that being he wanted a Buddha in it, an all-seeing eye, tribal masks, pirate symbols, maps, something to do with angels and demons or heaven and hell, nature, bright, bold colors, and the universe. So that's a lot to take in for a concept. So basically what I do, I begin with researching these things, which is actually my favorite part of the process. I'll go online and, look for different Buddha images, research the religious parts of this, look up maps from modern day maps to, early 17th century, and go through things like this to start bringing together this work. The mural itself was, you can't really tell there, but it's about a 3-story mural. So from the sketch, which you can see there, I've projected the mural onto the wall. We used a cherry picker to get up and down on this and create this incredible work. And as you can see, I've tried to utilize as much as the concept that he requested, creating this dynamic piece. Now for me, I think some concepts I can't get across very well. So I've got a beautiful partner named Curation who actually helped create this background. And for me, collaboration is really, really important in my work. As I said before, digital I'm not good at. There's certain, spray cans I'm still only just learning. I work with Posca pens, acrylic roll, anything like this. So then when we decided to create our NFT, again, it was a collaboration, which I was very excited about. So I will show you what the NFT became, and then I'll run you through a little bit about how that works. I love it. So when Marty approached me regarding NFTs, again, no idea what even an NFT was, and very excited to then have something animated of my work rather than just a color flashing or something changing. I found a company online called the Mushroom Galleries who were a fan of my work, and I just sent them some of the images that we wanted to use. And he wanted to go into, what I wanted from it. And I really, again, like I said, I love collaboration. So I wanted him to have full reign over working with it. So whatever he thought or felt from the work, I wanted him to then activate. And so I receiving it was very special, seeing the work come to life like that. And yes, I was just very excited with that whole process. And then when we launched in Japan at Gallery Ether, seeing him on the big screens and just watching that process from a sketch to a mural that will be taken down one day to something that is digital online that is kind of forever, was very exciting.
So that's really interesting, Jodee, to hear about the entire process.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I know the audience who was at the live event that we hosted, it was last November, I believe, right? At Gallery Ether in
Yeah.
Ishiazabu. People are still getting their heads around digital art. And I think a lot of people, especially meeting Jodee, it was very interesting for them to realize the amount of art that goes into it and the preparation, as you mentioned. Thank you.
Yes, for sure. Thank you.
Great, fantastic. Well, thank you very, very much. I mean, this is, you know, sort of incredible. No, because you know, it's completely global, right? Whether it's
Yes.
Lagos, whether it's Dublin, whether it's Athens, whether it's Osaka, you know, it's all there, and you're bringing it together. Now, Marty, let's go down to the dirty and dangerous stuff.
Okay.
About street art. You sort of alluded to it, you know, sort of at the beginning. Tell me a little bit about your journey on, you know, how you got in touch, how you research, you know, how you became part of some of the gangs. That's really what we want to know.
All right, going out at night and being a lookout for the artists and let them know when police were coming.
But being a lookout, like, explain the whole process, because in Japan you do
Yeah.
go to prison for this stuff,
Yeah.
right?
So in Japan, it's very harsh in Japan if you get caught doing graffiti or street art. The first time will definitely be a pretty large fine, maybe like 3 million yen. The second time can go up to like 3 years in jail. So it is pretty serious. In that way, it's a very underground sort of society in that, you know, people are using fake names. Um, and I think this was probably, it was a little bit before I met Elena. I was trying to get into this scene a bit. And so, yeah, I was going out at night, climbing fences, doing all these things that you shouldn't be doing at 40, whatever years old. But yeah, you have to kind of ingratiate yourself. Now, from an entrepreneur perspective, from a startup perspective, though, that's great because this means we have what I don't know, in the startup world we would call a moat, right? Where we're really well protected. It would be very hard for other people to get into this business because it takes years of ingratiating yourself and getting to know these communities. So I think that's one. And in fact, I can tell, if it's okay, a quick story about this. When we started, we had raised some funding from a venture capital firm. And it was about a week later that there's this an artist in Tokyo. He goes by the street name Woofy. If you look around, you're going to see Woofy written on every wall, little stickers everywhere. He's actually my son's favorite artist. Woofy, right after we had raised some funding, about a week later, I got a DM on Instagram from Woofy's girlfriend and said Woofy was caught and he's in jail. Right? And so I thought about it. In Japan, if you're arrested for anything, it's very strict, right? You can be held for 30 days without even being arrested. Then they can decide we want more time, keep you for another 30 days. You can be in jail for 2 months before you even have an idea what's going to happen. So it can be very severe. So I called up the venture capitalists, a great firm called Shizen Capital. I should give them a shout out. Mark Bivens, the head. I called Mark and I said, listen, Mark, I know I don't need your permission because I'm the CEO, but I just want to let you know I'm going to take like about $4,000 to get a kid out of jail. And Mark thought about it for a second and he said, yes, do it. That's brilliant. He's like, think about the cred that's going to give TOTEMO, that you guys really go to bat for the artists. And we did. So we hired a lawyer. She went to the prosecutor. She got it done in like 20 minutes. She's like, you only have him on camera committing one act of graffiti. All of the other 220 counts, you're surmising. Maybe it was someone else, you know? And so she gets him out. She calls me and she's like, I'm sorry, Marty. I mean, this only took me like 20 minutes and I've already taken your money. So I said, well, would you mind spending some time with me so we can put together a little white paper, let's call it, about what to do if you get arrested in Japan for graffiti. So, you know, what are you compelled to do? Like, what are you not? Like, can the police search your pockets? That's kind of important to know, right? Because you probably have pens and stickers and stuff in your pocket. Um, so so she helped me create this document, and then we went out with some street artists taking pictures of graffiti around Shibuya, also security cameras, where they're located. Um, and eventually, we'll be releasing this, probably not under the name of TOTEMO, but like as an online guide to help the community of artists. So that's kind of how we've gotten involved over time. And then as we've grown, especially Elena has already contacts with so many artists throughout Europe. And we find a lot of artists on Instagram. And now it's just grown to a point where artists are contacting us. I'll let you speak more to that, maybe.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, I've been doing research about graffiti since like 9 years ago. So I know like the tricks kind of to get to these people, because of course they do like illegal stuff, so it's really difficult to get to them, because as Marty said, they use like nicknames, they don't have like any like web page, social networks, so it's really hard to get to them. But yeah, like through Instagram mainly, it's how I get to them, like how where they share their photographies and their works, and it's how I found most of them. And it's funny because they always ask me if I'm kind of like police or a detective, because I make them so many questions always about it. So they at the beginning they never understand like why I have so much interest in what they do. But okay, when they know us and they speak to us, they know that we are like interested in their art, and yeah, they get to know like more friendly and give us like more information. But to write about this article that I did at the beginning, like research for 1 year here, like I was talking with a lot of them and going to a lot of like openings from their exhibitions, and finding some art galleries that are only like focused on graffiti, that there are like really few here in Tokyo, maybe like 2 or 3. It's really difficult to get into it. But in Osaka, there's also like a lot of like more art galleries related to graffiti, and more like mural projects. It's like easier, I guess, to get like big walls to paint murals. And also, like, I want to say that it's interesting that most of these artists, they have like double side. They have more the academic and the art gallery side, and then they have like the street side. And some of them, they use like the real name for art galleries, and then they have their nickname or like graffiti name for the streets. But it's not like I don't know, like teenagers that they just tag around the street. They have like degrees in art. They are real artists, and they just want to explore the part of the doing this work in the streets.
Tell us a little bit about the community. I mean, I'm sure that it's sort of pretty diverse. Some have a trained background and are artists, you know, sort of on the side, and then, you know, sort of do the street art thing. Are there gangs? You know, what about the Yakuza? Tell me a little bit about your more edgy stuff.
Well, the ones that we work with, they are like most of them, like I said, like real artists, or they are like graphic designers, architects, and they do their like exhibitions regularly in the different and different galleries, art museums. Even like in Mori Art Museum, there is a group of graffiti artists that they do a lot of exhibitions. So, yeah. Mostly, but the ages are really different. Also, they are like really from really young age to like, oh, yeah, they're like different backgrounds.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in terms of the community itself, to your question, Jesper, maybe 10% of these people writing on walls are like real criminals. You don't want to deal with these people. But another 20% maybe okay. They like vandalizing things because it's kind of fun. But then, 60-70%, as Elena mentions, are these people are true artists. They either are already accomplished or they're probably up and coming. Um, and as you mentioned, we know several who they hang in galleries and some of them even in museums under their real name. And then when they work with us, it's under their pseudonym that they're using for the streets, which, if you think about it, if it goes back to almost our very first slide when we were talking about Banksy, Basquiat, all of these people, you would now consider them true artists, right? But what were they doing? They were spray painting on doors. They were spray painting on walls that they didn't own. So we're always on the lookout to find those artists. And we also, it's not only just graffiti. I mean, we're working with street artists. I think Jodee would not call herself a graffiti artist,
Yeah,
but
true.
but
I
definitely
prefer it a bit more legal.
she definitely does more legal work, I would say. But it's still of the same vibe.
And Elena, can you tell us a little bit sort of about the history of graffiti in Japan? I mean, it's always like, at least, and I'm a complete amateur on this. It's like, oh my God, it's all this American stuff, spray painting, yada da, on the subways, and then, again, I'm not an artist or art historian or anything like that. But if you look at many of the tags that are around Shibuya, they look sort of very, very similar, at least to an untrained eye, to what you see in New York, right? So is there a Japan style? Where did graffiti come from? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's interesting because most of them they copy the American style, and also like all the trends. Basically, they always arrived in Japan like with a bit of delay from the rest of the world, and here it came like the traditional graffiti from New York. It came like few years later, and they copied basically the same style. And this is one of the research that I'm doing right now because I thought it was really interesting that I couldn't almost find any tag of kind of graffiti that was written using Japanese alphabet. So now I'm doing research about tags written with using hiragana, katakana, or kanji because it's not common to see it. They basically use like traditional alphabet, like from America. And when I talk with artists, Japanese artists, and I read interviews from them, they say that basically they don't use their own alphabet because they want to be more international and they want to be more known. So they want the people to read what they are doing, to be able to read it. So that's why they copy the American style. And also with the location, of course, it's totally different from America. They don't paint trains. For example, here in Japan, it's impossible to see like train painted. They have to use another kind of techniques and another kind of locations.
And like in terms of sort of, you mentioned Tokyo versus Osaka a little bit. Is there a difference in the sort of culture, between Kansai, between Osaka and Tokyo, or is it just dependent on the individual artist?
Not really like different of a style, but I think they have more freedom in Osaka. It's easier to paint there than here in Tokyo. And also that for muralism that's why they have more projects in Osaka, because it's easier to get permissions to paint in the big walls. Yes.
It's interesting, right? Again, our kids live in Berlin, and in Berlin there's a pretty active. I mean, there's not a wall that isn't, full of graffiti in one way from. But it's very political. It's very aggressive, right? I mean, there's like, it's not just like I'm not just copying some this, that, or the other because it looked cool on a U.S. subway and I'm going to import it. It's like something. It's very aggressive, sort of political messages. Is that? Do you find that in Japan as well, or is it more sort of the visual aesthetics rather than sort of a political edge behind it?
Yeah, I think it's not that political here in Japan.
You would have shocked me if you had said it is.
Yeah, there's not many. There are some though. If you pay real close attention, you'll see some works went up related to Black Lives Matter. There is someone putting up stickers. Another one where I think it's about a recent death at the hands of the police or something. There's some, but it's not much. Like it's nothing compared to Europe. Definitely in terms of politics.
Please prepare your questions. My last question. So Marty and Elena. So where do you slouch around? Where do you find? What are the best areas to find it? Is it in the bowels of Ikebukuro, or is it in, the high street of Omotesando?
Yeah, like I mean, traditional graffiti, like stickers or tags, this stuff. Yeah, you can find it most around Shibuya, around Harajuku. I really like, especially for example, Koenji. Koenji, they have a lot. It's like a kind of artistic neighborhood. Also, Shimokitazawa, this Setagaya area, they started to have more because I think the crowd is more like young and more like artistic, so it's easier to find around there. And murals, it's not that easy to find like big murals in Tokyo, but for example in Tenosu Island they have like a nice project with murals and interesting artists.
So Marty, where do you hang out?
Yeah, about the same places. um, yeah, I mean anywhere in Shibuya is pretty good to find some things. You have to look around, and it also takes a while. Like when I was like with my if you look closely, you'll also find famous graffiti artists whose work has been up in Japan for a while. Like in Daikanyama, I was walking down the street of Daikanyama with my son once, and he's like, Shepard Fairey! Right? So I don't know if you know Shepard Fairey, but he is a very famous, he's created the Obey clothing brand, which is like the face of the wrestler, and it just says Obey. So, but he started as a graffiti artist, right? And now he's a fine artist. But like my son's like, there's a shepherd sticker, and I go up and sure it is. But then even tucked around the wall was a stencil that he must have put up a long time ago, which was political. His work's always political. Yeah, so there or Mansoure from France. There used to be a great piece in Shibuya, right next to Tower Records. There was a big Astro Boy that was put up by by Space Invader, the French artist Invader. He put it up, and it was actually just recently removed because the city they spend around Yonokuen in Shibuya removing graffiti each year, and they removed that. And then Invader.
Did you buy it?
No, but Invader remade it and sold it for millions of his replication of it. So we should have advised Shibuya. But actually, I should give a shout out to Shibuya government. They're actually really supportive of TOTEMO. They've provided us free office space. They support us in negotiations to use galleries to hopefully do events in parks. Shibuya is actually a really big fan of what we're doing, which kind of makes sense because Shibuya is making themselves known as a hub, an Asian hub for startups, technology, arts and culture, and like we tick off at Totemo all of those things. So we're really happy to be partnering. That's strange. On the one hand with criminals, on the other hand with the government.
Great. If I can know any questions, any comments from the audience, Johnny.
Just on a practical level, in terms of monetizing, which is something we all have to do, with the current crash in metaverse and NFT and government clampdowns on cryptocurrency, how do you see the future in what you're doing, and how do you continue to monetize what you're doing?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I mean, the crash is fine. It's starting to come back up. Bitcoin's going back up. Ethereum's gained like half. I mean, that's just the nature of cryptocurrency. And if you take the long-term view, I have no concern about that. The government restrictions on how to classify securities is a bigger threat, to be honest. The way we plan to kind of continue to grow the business and monetize is basically by adding merchandising. Because what we're finding is that we do have some serious art collectors who can spend $3,000, $4,000 on a JPEG, and they're happy to do it because they want to support the artist and they want to have, you know, this piece of art that was created in 2022 so that 10 years from now they can show it off to their friends or whatever. And then we do have some people who just buy NFTs to try to flip them because that's still an activity that people do. But the vast majority of the people who are joining, who are listening to our podcasts, who are coming into to look at the stuff in our online gallery, I think that might be a stretch for them, especially in these times. So we'll be adding, as I mentioned soon, we'll be adding options to buy with credit cards, merchandising, like hoodies or T-shirts or our art prints, things like that. Because at the end of the day, even though the IP always kind of remains with the artist, it is still sort of an IP business. And most IP businesses basically make their money off of merchandising, right? Like even like Marvel, they probably lose money making the movies, right? But they make it all back by selling plush toys and stuff like that. So from a real business perspective, that's the way I think we're going to be weathering the storm. And more than that, that's the way we're going to be trying to grow the community. Because the more people we get wearing Jodee Knowles t-shirts, the better it is, right? So.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. This is a great topic to learn about the subculture in Harajuku. I was wondering, the artists who do street art, do they know each other? Because they use a nickname, but are they also connected underground? Because you are reaching out to them, but it seems they are influencing each other also through the street art, right? Have you ever realized that these artists you reached out are being already connected to each other through their network? Could you share any information? Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Elena could speak to this better. You might want to explain the concept of cruise.
Yeah, but basically, I think they all know each other.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like really small world. Like it's so easy for them to know each other. And yeah, they like Marty was saying, they have like different crews. So basically, they have like, I don't know, small crews like from 3-5 people, and they go painting together. So yeah, but they all know each other basically.
What about the territorial fights? Like I own Dogenzaka. And if you tag above me, I will rip it down.
Yeah.
That's what
Sure.
you do, right?
Well, you definitely don't want to go above. Yeah, but
It's pretty.
if you like, if you speak like some of our artists, I'll just use their artist names, like La Mano Fria, who I mentioned earlier. He's working out of Tokyo now, but he is originally from New York and then Miami, and he's older. And he'll explain. I mean, the origin, at least in the U.S., of graffiti crews was to take care of one another. So there's a president, there's a vice president, there's a treasurer, right? And they collect money because what's going to happen is people will end up getting arrested and need to be bailed. People will get killed, especially in the US, because it's much more aggressive culture back in the US compared to what it is in Japan. So they needed money for funerals and for stuff like that. So in the real history of graffiti in mainly the US, this idea of crews was really important because it was a little bit more of a very underground activity. Whereas now I think crews are more like your friends. And if I'm going to take the time to put up my sticker, I'll throw up your sticker too, right? Or something like that. And the territorialness, yeah, there's some. Right? What do you think?
Yeah, but is it work? Yeah, yeah, but of course, like you said, it's not nothing compared as in America, because here is not like that dangerous. But yeah, I mean, for example, one gallery owner, he thanked me for writing this article that I did about graffiti here in Tokyo at the beginning, because he said that they are kind of afraid to write about it. They have this knowledge, but because they are inside the scene, they don't want to give all this information. So he said like it was nice that I came like from totally like outside world, like because I don't have connection, I'm not friends to any of them, so I could write freely about what I thought it was like going on in the scene. But he said like from inside they cannot write about it or give all this information because they will get in trouble.
And also, there are rules. So they're kind of unspoken rules in the graffiti world. So I don't really have a slide prepared to explain this, but you have things like a tag, and a tag is just a quick writing on a wall, right? And then you have something called a throw up, which is like usually one or two colors, maybe bubble letters. Then you have like a piece, which is more maybe it's the name, but there's a lot more like accents and different colors, and it's much more ornate. And then you might have murals, things like Jodee's expert at, right? And there's kind of a rule, like you can go over a tag if you're putting a throw up. You can go over a throw up if you're putting up a piece, right? You can go over the piece if you're doing a mural, and then sorry, Jodee, some of the graffiti artists like get all mad at muralists. So then you can go over a mural with a tag again. Right?
Again, yes, definitely. I also think there's a level of respect there, though, which is nice. And you can tell when someone, say, tags near my work, it's only near it, it's not on it. And there's also that level of respect in the community for us as well. You know, if I recognize a tag or a person, you kind of avoid placing anything there because it's like finding treasure sometimes. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe it's that person. I'm not going to affect that area, you know?
Yeah, that's completely true. In fact, we just had this happen to us a few days ago. I was in New York recently, and I started seeing this work from this artist who I never saw her work before, and I thought it looked so cool. So I hope no one's from New York, police here. So I started putting up TOTEMO stickers, the one that says "Do not scan," close by her work, right? And then she contacted us like this week or last week, and was like, "Hey, I saw what you guys are doing. It looks awesome. Can I join?" So I think there is like there's a respect and a community building, and especially graffiti artists tend to travel. Maybe not so much in Japan, but a lot of them travel the world all the time. So like even when I was coming here this morning, I was seeing the same stickers I saw 2 weeks ago in New York, right? Because the person's been here. And a lot of that's because they're artists, so they might be traveling around to do their official work. Or some of them just like skateboard. I mean, half of them are skaters, right? So lots of them like want to just go all around the world and hit all the skate parks. And that's why you can find their work. So it's kind of interesting that there is this huge community and there is a level, as Jodee mentioned, of respect. In fact, there was a pretty famous battle once between Banksy and some other artist, right? Sometime we should.
Going around the world, chasing each other.
No. There was this. Maybe you know the story better. What?
I think it was like on the news that they were fighting for a spot, so they were like painting on each other, like on top of each other, like forever.
The Elon Musk Zuckerberg thing.
Yes.
Kind of.
Something
It was a big battle of egos, and
It's a big battle of egos.
they would keep going over, but creatively going over, like using the other person's piece to create a new piece, and then iterate on that by going back and forth on that battle. Right? That's pretty interesting.
Max.
Thank you very much for the talk. I was just wondering if I've been kind of dealing with a lot of Japanese developers, and as you know, they're taking over a lot of central Tokyo and kind of destroying a lot of the historical areas and stuff like that, where I think there's a lot of graffiti. But they are all looking at ways of building communities and driving people into their spaces with the new kind of developments. Have you had any luck, or have you talked to any developers about creating spaces for graffiti artists? Because especially with the kind of rise of graffiti in the art world, I think, you know, probably it makes sense for a progressive developer to create that space, and maybe something good for you guys to kind of sponsor.
Yeah, absolutely. I won't go into details, but again, I've mentioned we've been working kind of closely with the mayor's office of the Shibuya government, and they have programs supporting different startups and connecting different startups. Some of those programs are supported by some of those development firms. So these are like discussions we're starting to have because it's kind of a win-win-win for everyone. It's a win for the artist, it's a win for the developer, it's a win for basically arts and culture overall. Um, hmm.
It's kind of a tricky thing, right? Because I mean, if you curate something, right, then I mean the edginess, the fact that it is dangerous, the fact that it is in the dark corner, and that it's a secretive society rather than some mural that is put up, and every 3 months at 12 o'clock we're going to clean the wall, and there'll be a rush for new. You know, that's kind of like So it's I don't know how you guys think about it.
Mm,
It's always
well, even if the developers don't commission anything, it's going to go up anyways. So, and the government does. They have schedules of cleaning, and all the graffiti writers know the schedules, and everyone's like, "Fresh walls coming in a week." Right? So,
I think in Miesta Park they built the skate park
yes.
at the top, and a lot of the local skaters aren't really into it. I mean, some of it's related to the price, but some of it's related to the fact it's kind of official, and they kind of want to be underground. So
That and also the park it's only basically pools and bowls. So like most kids are into street skating. So it's like they built the wrong park. They should have asked some skaters before building it. But anyways, it's still fun. Sometimes I go with my son. Why not?
cool. I think we've got a question from overseas.
Sure. It's a two-part question. So, in terms of the NFT art, in generic, are there works on like sculptor works that is generic around NFTs? And I guess in terms of graffiti, do you see any sculptures that may come into your area?
Okay, I'll talk a little bit to this one. So, NFTs are basically a digital receipt that proves provenance, authenticity, all of that. Um, so, NFTs have been attached to almost everything so far, and sculptures are definitely one of them. So people, especially who are selling or even clothing or sometimes like artistic toys, they're attaching NFTs to them. So that's already starting. We're not necessarily dealing with that at the moment at Totemo, although it's kind of a good idea that we should think about as we move into merchandising more. Yeah, and then for sort of graffiti sculptures, I can give you one really interesting case. His street name is Nicky Nailed It. And Nick is from LA. Um, I met up with him originally in Hawaii, and I could tell you another whole thing about helping him carry paint up to create something. But Nick, besides just putting up paint, he creates in his real day job, he's really an expert uh, wood maker. Like just basically, he builds houses and stuff, right? And he's a real expert with his hands on that. And so he will build. If he's out and he sees a place that it's beautiful, this is a beautiful tree. It should have a swing. He'll go build a beautiful swing, and then go up at night and hang it. And so, or he's done this with benches, where he's made like ornate park benches and gone at night and like drilled into the ground and put cement in there and put the bench there, and it can't be removed. So I think it's more rare to find graffiti artists who are doing that sort of intervention art, but some of them are. Or another thing that I can give you another example of, Nick, you might remember when we used to have those phones on the street that we would use coins, right? So all of these are kind of abandoned in LA. So he's been basically covering it with these beautiful wooden doors. And when you open it up, he has toys for for children. So there are some artists doing intervention art like that, which is kind of cool. And you know, it's not fully legal, so there's, I would say, still in that street art vein.
Great, thank you. So the second part is a question to Jodee, actually, as an artist. When you first came on, when you first got involved with this, turning your artwork into NFTs, what were the first questions that popped into your mind for you to actually come into the world?
Well, for me, I guess because it's my artwork, I freaked out because, like I said, I know nothing about the digital world and thought, well, how am I going to achieve this? What is needed from me? So it was a bit scary. I guess the next questions were, how does it work? How are we creating this? More so, just constantly thinking, if it's my work, how am I having an input? And Marty and TOTEMO were amazing in explaining even just the basics of this, and realizing that I can still have control over it and collaborate and have it become something completely different I never expected. There wasn't too many questions from there, I guess. It was just more so me as an artist, how is it my work, and how am I putting it into this world that I don't know much about?
Hi, this was really interesting. One question is about you're taking this art off the streets in a way, but I think these street arts are very street. There's something about where it is. So how to bring the street together with the art? And maybe there's a question for Jodee. And I asked that because I used to live in New York, and there was this famous Banksy thing near Zabar supermarket. And it was fun to go see it in different street situations. It looks different in the winter than it looks in the summer. And so how do you how do you keep the street part of the street art in what you do? And that doesn't matter for you as an artist. So that was for Jodee.
Yeah, okay. I mean, for me, I think also what Marty was touching on, a lot of street art isn't permanent. It's something that can be taken over. And I've had that situation too, where I love actually viewing something and then suddenly it's gone, and it's actually quite disappointing, and the government's painted over it. So I feel like having that aspect of the streets come digitally with an NFT, it means it saves it a little bit more. It keeps it there. In my opinion, I guess. I think it's exciting that the guys are somehow retaining this impermanent situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Jodee on that. And also, we only gave you a limited view of the artworks we feature, but some of them are actually more street scenes. Some of them are actually videos of the artist making the work. Right? Some of them we have videos of the artist making and destroying their own work, and then preserving it only as an NFT. So we have as many different approaches as we have artists because they're artistic, right? So they're coming up with all new ideas, but we are trying to preserve it. And I think there's things that could be really cool that could be added into digital artwork. So like you could have maybe a picture from a mural done in, let's say, LA, and then you could tie it in to like your local weather, right? And have the so it's reading your local weather feed, and then it, like if it's raining in Tokyo, you can have that piece of art, which is the picture of the art in LA, having it be raining on your screen and stuff like that. We haven't developed that technology yet, but I've been talking with some artists, and they're saying, we can incorporate all of this metadata, and we can do so much more than just the street. So it's kind of exciting to see where the artists, I mean, to be honest, they're leading us, we're not leading them. So it's pretty exciting.
Marty and Elena and Jodee, so the bots are taking over, right? So, you're talking about all this metadata, you're talking about, sooner or later, where's the difference between something that's generated by an AI? I've got a friend, he collects, a very, very big collector of NFTs, but it's all algo based, and the more machine, the better, because he personally thinks that that's sort of the cool new thing right now. But talk to me a little bit about how you personally sort of think about the advance of, AI in the creative process and, how that's, going to affect your vision?
Well, we are using also like AI to, we are starting to do like some research about it and see how it looks like to do like animations with it. But I don't know, basically, like personally, I like more how it's make it by like real animators than AI, because AI makes everything looks like kind of similar style. So I prefer when it's made by like animators itself.
You think you'll be able to tell the difference in 2 years' time?
Yes, right now, yes, but in 2 years' time, maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, as Elena mentioned, we've already started lots of experimentation with AI. So we've been taking works from our artists and applying AI to it, and then sending it back to the artist to get the artist's thoughts and what they think. Because you can basically, using some different programs, you're basically just putting in keywords, and then the AI will learn from the keywords how it should manipulate the image or the video. So I think it's kind of exciting. I think some of the artists too are finding it really well. I think there's two camps. Some are really scared, and some of them are really embracing this concept of AI. And they're like, awesome, I can do my work 10 times faster. Fantastic.
Jodee.
Yeah, I'm one of the scared ones. I guess it's almost like a grieving process for me. At first, I was really anti this situation, but now I've come to realize it will be a great tool. Like Elena said, I think it all does look very similar at this stage, but the more we become effective with our prompting, and it's the human way of utilizing the words, I think I'll be okay with it. But yeah, at this stage, it's definitely a bit scary for me. My partner recently meshed an image of myself with my work, and it freaked me out for one. And it didn't look anything like my work in the end, which gave me a bit of hope that it was kind of like, okay, no one can mimic this. But like I said, the more you prompt it and the better we get. I don't know, in 2 years, I think maybe we might have a bit of a challenge. But for now, it's a good tool, I think, and it helps. It does help speed up people's processes, but I'm still a bit scared.
Funny, what I actually like about it is that it actually forces a debate everywhere about authenticity, right? And it forces everywhere a debate about what is reality worthwhile living as human beings. And I don't have the answer, even though I'm German, but, Marty, Elena, Jodee, wanted to thank you very, very much.